All right, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today's guest has over 29 years of law enforcement experience in one of the largest police agencies in the country and has over 10 years of experience as a supervisor. I'm super excited to introduce you to Robert. Robert, thank you so much for being a part of this show.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me come on.
Of course. So I know we talked offline and you have a fascinating story. I'm really excited to jump into wellness with you and mental health, but I want to give some context into your career and your career path. So can you tell us, how did you get into law enforcement? I know you've been in this career for over 29 years. What made you want to be in law enforcement?
It's a really strange story because when I graduated from high school, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher,
Okay.
and thank God that didn't happen because I don't think I could do that. It's a very difficult job. I took a class my freshman year at school, and it was taught by a retired Cleveland police officer, and I really loved the class and the way that he taught his class. And I really started to look into that as a career. Switched my major, lost my scholarship, didn't care, wanted to do it. Um, and once I graduated, I moved to where I currently am, started taking a lot of tests to get on to different jobs. Um, this is a very large department. So when I took this test, man, it took, there's thousands of people that took the
Mm,
test. And when I, during that process, excuse me, during that process of waiting, I worked in a county jail, which was that's a whole different story. I think I lasted maybe 9 months, and then I got called for this current job, and I jumped at the chance because working in the jail is a very difficult job, very difficult. I salute every single person that does that. It's so hard,
mhm.
mentally. And then I joined this department, and I was super excited. And I remember when I started. I didn't want to miss the weekends. I wanted to
Mm.
work the weekends because that was all the action was. And um, I always wanted to be a big city cop when I was in college, and I accomplished that goal. And it in the beginning, it was just complete fantastic. It was great. I loved it.
And I know, and it's so interesting because I have these conversations where, when you're younger, it is that you're kind of seeking that adrenaline and that excitement earlier in the career. And then as you progress, you kind of start to see the impact of that over time. And we know that, 29 years ago, wellness resources really weren't a thing. And so when do you think, how long in your career do you think that you started to see the impact of, those early years on your mental health?
Well, for me, I think it started right away because I was on
Mm,
midnights. I worked
yeah.
overnights, and I don't care what anyone says. That's not normal. And I did it for a long time. And you have the reverse schedule, and the people that understand are the people you work with. Your family doesn't understand. At the time, I was newly married when I first got on the job, no kids. It's difficult, because your friends, they call you at 10 a.m. and you're asleep
Hmm.
and you don't really have a life. And it's hard to adjust. You're 24 years old, you start out, and um, as things go by, as things go on, I transferred to another precinct and worked a different shift. And I think once I really started having kids, that really affected, like, it makes you think, like, what's more important?
Hmm.
I want to get promoted. I want to work. I want to make overtime. I want to make money. I'm new. I don't have a pot to piss in. I wanted a house and stuff. And then you get your house and stuff, and you have your kids, and then you're like, well, I don't want to be at work all the time, but I
Hmm.
need to because it's expensive to live here. It's expensive to have a house and have these things. And that's for me, like, my stressors aren't from the job. They're outside the job. That's that's the part where you're torn between because someone told me a long time ago, you have to remember you have to shut the police part off when you go home because you're not in charge. We're in charge all the time when we're at work. We tell people what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, you know, um, and that's the way it is. And you can't go home like that.
Right.
And it's a very hard switch to turn off. And it took me, man, probably a decade to figure out that I need 30 to 45 minutes to myself when I come home to turn that off because the lack of sleep, especially when you work midnights, the lack of sleep, I'm absolutely horrible. And thinking back on it, I was a horrible person. I didn't want any noise. I didn't, I have little kids, they're running around and I'm just like, not good. It's hard. And, it's not like our parents where there was one household income that could run the house, so there's two people working. You got these, you have these kids and sometimes your schedules change. Sometimes you have your days off canceled. Sometimes there's an event, and you're scrambling and it's a lot. And I think it really started hitting when I had kids.
And I know so many people can relate to that. It's like the dynamic of home life and work life and trying to find that, I don't know if balance is the right word, but that separation, because I think inevitably one seeps into the other. Home life can seep into work life and work life can seep into home life. And so I know you said it took you years to discover that you needed a few minutes to kind of down regulate and make that transition. What does that look like for you, or what did that look like for you? Was it meditation, breathing? What did you do for that 30 minutes to kind of get yourself prepared to, enter into your family life after coming off of a shift?
Well, usually, living in this city, there's a lot of traffic. So you're always in traffic
Mhm.
going and coming. And that's another story in itself. But when I would come home, well, first of all, you have to make it known that's what you need. No
Mm,
one can read your mind.
right.
So, say I need like 30 minutes. The worst times were when I had to go do something right away when I got home. Take the kid to a volleyball game or go where we need to go somewhere because of something and you're rushed. My thing is just taking off my uniform, you know, uh, just changing my clothes, and just basically sitting and taking that time for myself and just relax. Like I'm home. What is it I need to do? Focus on those types of things and take that time for yourself. I mean, a lot of people, like I tell people all the time, every single person every single person you see is going through something.
Hmm.
There is something in your life that you're dealing with. And it could be a minor thing, but it's something you're thinking about. It could be, I have a high school graduation on Saturday, or I have a wedding to go to and I don't have a gift, or financial struggles or relationship struggles or relationship with your kid struggles, or your kid is sick, or there's something. So um, I know in the beginning of my career, I didn't have a lot of empathy for things, and I probably don't have it still. It's something that I struggle with because my childhood was different. Um, we struggled. I think everyone thinks that, I'm a white male, so I had it easy, and it's not the case. You know, um, I sometimes we didn't have electricity, sometimes we didn't have water, sometimes we didn't have food. Not all the time, but sometimes. My mom did the best she could. Um, and my very first struggle on this job was, man, right when I got on this job, I hit the street in February of 1996, and my sister passed away from cancer in April of 96 at a very young age. And my lieutenant at the time said, "You tell me when you need to come back," because I had to fly to
Mm,
another state to be there. And he understood that. And when I came back after like 10 days, uh, things aren't available I mean, I think they're available, but you don't know what's available to you. You don't, because no one really wants to talk about it back then. It's more prevalent now.
Mm.
Um, and I needed a lot. I needed a lot of help because my sister was like my second mother. Um, and I was alone here. I mean, I was married, yes, but my family was not in the state. So I needed them and they weren't here. So I think at that time I was in a kind of a depression because I didn't really care about anything. Surely didn't care about my relationships. I went to work like a zombie. I still working midnights then. And because I remember working. And then as soon as I got off work at 8 in the morning, I'd get on a plane, go to Arizona to see my sister before she passed. And then I'd come back. As soon as I landed, I'd go to work.
Mhm.
I'd take my
It's a
2 days and
lot,
was flying and doing this for weeks. And if it wasn't for this lieutenant who took that and gave that to me, because I can't imagine having 5 days and just being, okay, get back. And that little thing I always remembered, and so when I became a supervisor, I remember that. And
right?
I do everything in my power to help someone who I may know is going through something. I mean, granted, I can only do so much, uh, but I'm gonna do what I can get away with. I mean,
Yeah,
basically, I'm gonna do whatever I can to help that person because it was done for me, and it helped me, and it made me want to work for that person. Like they didn't, it's not a cookie cutter type thing. Everyone's different. I'm not saying you could give everyone all the time off because they have this or that, but man, some things you really need to read people and
right.
reach out to them. I mean, someone gets into a shooting or a bad car accident. I mean, our department is right there, all over it. They're taking care of business. But people don't go and talk about, oh, my mom died,
Mm.
my sister died. You don't have any idea like what they're going through. And maybe their partner would know, maybe. But something that, people keep to themselves and hold it in. And I have found that through going to like a therapy session, seeing my therapist, um, sometimes I don't think I have anything to talk about. And then I'm talking for an hour and it feels like 5 minutes. And I feel better. It's really not talking about my problems all the time, just stuff that annoys the shit out of me. You know,
Right.
it could be anything.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so important. And I want to touch on a few things that you said because I think you're exactly right that one, you guys are a team and you have to look out for each other. And when there's this culture of we don't talk about it, that's not that support, supporting each other and realizing that everyone is going through something. And I think that there's solidarity in that, knowing that, you're not alone and having those conversations. And I know you said, back in the day, those conversations weren't had and now it's a little bit more prevalent and common, but I still think we have a little ways to go with that. But there's power in solidarity and sharing stories and having those conversations so that if someone is struggling, that they know that they're not alone and that there isn't shame or they're not an outcast for going through things and feeling things. And I love that you had someone in leadership who was looking out for you. And that's now impacted the way that you lead. And I think that that's a testament to anyone who's listening who is either in leadership or who aspires to be in leadership to know how big of an impact you can have on someone's life and their mental health and how you can truly make a difference because that person who looked out for you, it's a that trickle effect that happened, and now you're going to look out for other people and then they're going to look out. And so it's this snowball that happens over time that creates that positive impact. So I'm so grateful that you had someone who was looking out for you in one of the hardest times of your life.
It was, and we talked about this earlier. When we talked about how every day this job takes a piece of your soul away and
Mm,
it packs it away. You walk into the academy, you have this empty suitcase with nothing in it. You go through your training, you go hit the street, you go through your career, and you're putting these. experiences or things. It could be seeing your first dead body, you know, uh, taking your first person to jail because it's not pretty when you have to take someone to jail. You know, if they
Hmm.
hit their wife and they say they're not going to jail, well, they're going. And it's not pretty. And you're packing all your first major car accident where someone's, passed away, or it could be a death of a child, or your first time seeing a child abused. And I remember seeing that and so angry. I wanted to toss this guy right out the window. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, the rage that you have, and it's a mixed bag of emotions, and you're putting everything in the suitcase, and you're putting it, and you have it for a 30-year career, and you better be ready when it opens.
Hmm.
And your job is to have enough pieces of your soul to have a life when you're done, because our life
Yeah.
expectancy is less, 10 years or less when we retire. We see more traumatic events. I mean, I think firemen see probably more than us, but uh, I would say we're in more than
Hmm.
than they are. They see it, they see the aftermath, but we're in it,
Hmm.
and it's a lot. Like, you don't think about it, and something will happen, and people everyone thinks it's the movies, and sometimes it is. Sometimes it's crazy, but it's not like you come home to your family and go, "Oh yeah, I got shot at today," or someone slammed my foot in the door and we got in and I got into a fight, and this guy punched me in my face, and you know, you're not going home and talking about it. Like, you talk about it to your buddies and the people that you work with. You say, "Oh, it's messed up. Did you see what happened? This," and you laugh about it and stuff like that. And I always said we'd have the number one show in America if we could just have a camera watching us talk about stuff.
Right.
But that's who understands. People that never. I mean, you have all these people that professors and these people that write books, and you know the statistics of it, but if you've never done it, you have no idea. You have no idea what's going on. You
100%.
you you think that the people that are in charge are the smartest, the best, and the brightest. Some of them are. Some of them aren't. You have hardworking people that are out there trying to do good every day, and then one person from 5 states away does something, and everyone's vilified.
Hmm.
You know, it's like being a Catholic priest when all that stuff happened. Like, listen, there's bad teachers, and there's bad doctors, and there's bad, mechanics, and you can't hold us all to the flame. And the way it is now, who in their right mind would do this?
Right.
Who in their right mind would put their life on the line to be second guessed from a decision you made in a split second? So we choose to do it. Oh, you signed up for this. And yeah, I did, but I signed up to go home too.
Right.
I signed up, for all of it. And, you know, as you go on and your career path is, um, it's not the bright thing that you saw. I remember I said I wanted to be the youngest sergeant ever, and then I wanted to keep going, and it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that at all. And it's very get very disgruntled with that. And you have to learn that. I'll just go to say this: all the bad bosses I've ever had on this job are nobody at home. They have
Hmm.
no home life. They're not in charge at home. They either don't have kids or their kids don't really care about them because they made this job their life. And you have to realize that it isn't, because when
Yeah.
you're gone, you're forgotten. I had a sergeant, an old time sergeant, he retired. He goes, "Once I'm gone, I'm out of sight, out of mind." And you're like, "No, no, no, you aren't.
Yeah.
You aren't." And it's a hard thing to swallow, hard pill to swallow, because I mean, we're having a great time, and yeah, this is my life. But when I'm on vacation, I find out what my life is like without this, and I like it. I wish I got
For
paid to do more,
sure. Get paid to
but
do your life.
yeah.
Well, and I
So
think too, like not letting your career define who you are. It's what you do, not who you are. And that's a conversation I've had many times with different individuals like yourself who've been on the job for a long time and in leadership. And I think that that perspective comes with time and with maturity, and the older you get, you start to realize what's important. And, to your point, and I loved that saying, of you're trying to have enough pieces of your soul left over at the end of this career so that you can have a long and successful retirement. I think that's so powerful. And it's such a good message for anyone who's, still earlier in their career of like, don't let this job take everything from you. Have something left over to where you can enjoy your life and your retirement that you worked so hard for because you deserve to have a long and successful life and a long and successful retirement and not, fall victim to the statistics of, 10 years at best. So I loved that. And I think that's such a powerful message, and I also think that you know, and I would love to hear from you about your journey and how you've gotten to that point. I know you said therapy has been really impactful, and I would love to hear more about those resources. But I also think that it's stories like this, it's conversations like this that allow people to learn from someone who's been there. Because I think early in your career, it is hard. It's hard to know what you're getting yourself into because you don't know until you're there. And you don't know until you've experienced all the things on the street. You've experienced the challenges at home and you start to lose those pieces, like you said, of yourself to where then you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done this or I wish I would have known. And so having these words of advice, these words of wisdom to, set that stage of like, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. And you don't have to make this career everything.
I mean, I like to tell people that before I got on this job, I was much funnier, much happier. Like,
Mm,
I think I was more of a, laid back type person. I mean, I think I've always been serious just because of my upbringing, but I think I was goofier, like I would do more stupid things, but um, it changes. Like, there's no time for that. And I remember in the academy them telling you, if you think about all the things that can happen to you, you're never going to get anything done.
mm-hmm.
And oh, I could get shot. I could do this. We had a week in the academy. It was like a mental health week, and they had scenarios. And they give you a scenario. They go walk in the door. You walk in the door. The guy goes, as soon as you walk in the door, he has a cap gun. Bang, you're dead. Go sit down. So I mean, uh, what's the goal? Don't just walk into a door.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at hands. Hands kill people. Hands hold guns. Hands hold knives. Hands, so you're geeked up. Like, and now it's, I don't think it's like that anymore. I don't really know what it's like in the training section. I mean, I'm sure they teach you things, but it's all about your voice. And I remember that I would use my voice. I much want to use my voice a lot more than my hands on someone. If I can,
Right.
obviously you start out, hey, you can't do that, blah, blah, and then you let them dictate how you're going to talk to them. If they're not nice to you, then I'm going to use my other voice, my street voice. And if I curse at you, then, and if that works, great. Like I didn't have to put my hands on you at all. Like I just changed it from, well, now you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all about this and all about appearance and all about, and I understand that to a point because you have community relations that you want. But, like I said before, when you take someone to jail because they have to go, it's not pretty. And you can't second guess yourself on doing your job. Like someone needs to come in and say they were doing their job. It's not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you do these citizen academies, you show them things like this. Of course we want to de-escalate anything. I don't want to kill anybody. I don't. My
Mm-hmm.
God, who wants to do that? No
Mm-hmm.
one. And it's not because of the legal ramifications. It's because I got to live with that, you
Right.
know? But if it's them or me, I'm going home. If it's
Right.
them or my partner, I'm going home. I'm sorry, but you have to look at it that way too. And you get people that they don't understand that. And then I'm a big proponent of getting politics out of police departments. There's no place for it.
Hmm.
Everyone should be against violent crime. Everyone should be on board with locking people up and putting them in jail for a long time when they're found guilty of doing things. Are there bad cops? Yes, of course there are. Punish them. Punish them.
Hmm.
We don't care. Good cops don't care. But what's the one thing that stops a bad guy with a gun? It's a good guy with a gun. It
Right.
just it is what it is. So knowing that you have this power when you're young, you get on this job I got on the job when I was 24 years old, and man, I uh, it's a big deal. I mean, you you better be careful and better know what you're doing. And I was lucky; I had some really good um, people that I worked with, and they had really good advice about working with people who have the same temperament.
Mm.
There's leaders and followers in this world and on this department, and it's okay to be a follower if you're following the right leader. But sometimes you get some knucklehead who wants to do knucklehead things. Stay away from them.
Mm.
And the first time you meet someone who thinks they know it all, get away from them because they don't. There's something new to learn every single day. Um, and I think a lot of times when you're young, you start to do things that you don't really realize what you're doing. Like, for example, you're working afternoons, you get off at 10 o'clock at night, and you go hang out with your friends from work at the bar.
Hmm.
And you have a great time, you're laughing and all that. Then you start associating alcohol with having a good time.
Hmm.
And then, or like nowadays, all these kids, they're using the Zen, those pouches. Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's insane how many people are Zenning. And I'm like, Zen gambling, sports gambling, I see these young, oh man, I got this going, I got this. They have fantasy football. I'm at 10 leagues and I'm paying $3,000. I mean, they're trying to get these highs, and it's just I think about it and I think, I mean, back in my day it was alcohol or it was, you know, whatever, smoking or whatever. And I think you can really go down a bad rabbit hole if you don't pay attention and don't then when they and I remember them telling me this in the academy too, have friends that are not on the job because
Mm.
they ground you and they don't let you forget who you are because you forget sometimes because you're big shit when you're at work, but
Right.
I'm just Robert when I'm home, it doesn't matter. And then you need that. You need to be told that, yeah, because everyone likes to puff their chest out and, you know, you don't need to. I don't like people to know that I'm the police when I go out, and part of it's because of I don't want to talk about it when
Right.
I'm out with people. Um, or they always ask you, what's your scariest event? And, I don't mind talking about it, but I mean, it's really not, you're not going to understand it. I mean,
Right.
you're not.
Right.
I mean, for me, going through this job, I went to some marriage counseling and stuff, but it wasn't, I mean, I went through my divorce and, I mean, that's a whole different story. Like I said, all of my mental health journey is based upon things outside the job.
Hmm.
I've never been shot. I've never shot anybody. I mean, I've been shot at, but nothing, I look at it as I'm just working. But um, going through my divorce with my kids, 4 kids, and then the guilt of that, guilt of not being there because that was their complaint. I wasn't there. Like I worked a lot and I wasn't there, and they're older now, but I mean, at the time they were old enough, and that that'll knock you right down right there. And
100%.
I thought I had things under control, and I didn't. And I don't know what the hell I was doing. I was just all over the place. I dove into work, and that was a mistake. You know, kids don't want you to dive into your work. They want you there.
Right.
They don't care about that. They were their teenagers, and you know they want you present, and you need to be honest with them. I mean, thank God I'm not with my first wife. You know, you don't realize you're with, you know, a narcissist, and when you're having a bad time at home and you dive into work, now you're hurting your home life, and it's not hurting your work life. It's not helping your work life either.
Right.
So I always hated getting in an argument right before going to work. I mean, dude, that's all you think about. And man, I can't be doing that. I need my head here at work.
Right.
So and we talked about this earlier, like um, we don't have the things that our grandparents and great grandparents had, where they went through national crises, you know, world wars, Vietnam War, Great Depression, and they came up with these tools to adapt, and they've had these, and they use that in their personal life because they had to.
Hmm.
And now we don't have any of that. And, you know, I think I spanked one of my kids one time, but that was because she, you know, drop kicked her sister in the face. And I was just like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I felt bad doing it. And I was like, I'm never going to do this again. And I'm not saying kids need to be spanked, but like you need to give them something. Like you need to give them some kind of guidance. And didn't have it really, because teenage kids, they don't care about what I have to say, you know, about my experiences. They don't care until later. Like, how did you do this? And how did you do that? And but you know, it's really hard because I know the divorce rate is very high, and man, it can be. And again, I had someone reach out to me who used to be my supervisor, and he says, "You're going to go through something when you're divorced, and when it happens, you need to reach out."
Hmm.
And it happened, and it was. There's nothing worse than taking your kid out on their birthday, celebrating it with dinner and having a cake and giving them their presents. You drop them off back at their moms, and then you go home alone. It's, I mean, granted, it all depends on what kind of dad you are, or you were when you were all together. But
Hmm.
for me, oh, that was bad. Or Christmas, you have, you know, it it's brutal. It's brutal, and I needed to talk to someone about that. And it's such divorce is such a common thing, and people don't want to talk about that. Wow, it when it happened, I thought of him. I didn't reach out to him, but I thought of
Hmm.
him, and I did start talking to someone that I knew, and
Good.
I talked about it, and it helps that someone knew that something was going to happen, and because it happened to him,
Hmm.
and he thought enough to tell me, because it was that, and it was. I'm not saying that I would do anything to myself because of it, but man, knowing that someone went through it, and so someone knew that it was coming and told me about it, it helped me a lot.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we said before, too, of like knowing you're not alone and having someone looking out for you, and I think so often we get so stuck in our own bubble and think that we're the only ones going through it, and we don't have that social awareness of looking out for each other and, having again someone else who was looking out for you in a hard time and how impactful that was for you to then start your journey of reaching out and talking about it. And I also want to kind of comment on what you said before, because I think that so often people don't realize that there are healthy outlets for stress and trauma and the things that you're going through. And I mean, I've done it myself. I can deeply relate to escaping and numbing and finding that happiness or that pleasure in doing something destructive, and whether that's alcohol or, like you said, any sort of addiction, gambling, alcohol. I know prescription medication is a big thing right now. And it's all a part of that like unhealthy coping mechanism. And when you surround yourself with people who support that, you don't realize that you're doing anything destructive or that that's what it is because your whole circle is telling you it's okay. And so for you, obviously you have found those healthy coping mechanisms and those, healthy outlets in the form of therapy and, finding people to talk to and to be able to offload those things. Can you give some more insight into how that started? Was that a resource that your agency provided? Was that something that you sought on your own? And how has that helped to improve your life over time?
So in the beginning of my career, our department, they had resources, but it's not prevalent like it is, not advertised like it is now. So for me, during my first marriage, went to therapy because it's all provided for free for all your
Mhm.
family and stuff like that. So went and and actually I had a great time at therapy because the therapist was talking to me and my first wife at the time, and I just was saying this, and they're like, well, what's wrong with that? And they're like, what do you want him to do? And then I
Mm,
felt like, it wasn't like I was, you know, doing something crazy. I wasn't doing anything crazy, and it wasn't. I helped with my kids and stuff, and my first wife didn't want to go after the first session because she wanted to talk to her more than me. Well, I started going by myself after that for like 3 or 4 times. And then she's like, there's nothing I can do about your relationship if you both don't come in, but I'll gladly talk to you if you want. So I did that for a while. And then it was basically on the back burner for a long time. And then after I got divorced, um, a few years go by, and then I got remarried. And my current wife is very pro mind, body, spirit.
mhm,
And mind, body, spirit for you need to take care of your mind, body, spirit for me. You
mhm.
fix you for me because you can't be good to me if you don't take care of yourself.
Yep.
And seeing that my kids needed it, and basically talking to her to my wife about it the most, and she's very supportive of it. And because I know, like, if guys from work saw me talking to you about this, and I've talked to other people that I see a therapist, but there are still guys that say, you don't need that. And
Mm,
maybe they don't, and God bless you if you don't, you know. But I, for me, I really started going this last year, like where I'm consistently going. And like I said, it's not because I have this crazy things in my life. I mean, there's things that annoy me or things that bother me, or like I said, I'm trying to work on more of my empathy because, like I said, this job changes you, and I'm black and white. It's this or this.
mhm.
The part that's gray is very hard sometimes to see, where normal people that are not the police, they can see that, and I have a hard time relating to that. And I shut down more than I open up. Like I'd rather just not talk about it. Like, so you just avoid things because you don't want it. Like, why bother? Like, I don't want to deal with this argument. I'd rather just not talk about it. But I would say that my wife now has really helped me on do this. So, and I recognize it. And my daughters, I have two of my daughters go to therapy as well for their issues that they need to talk about. And I probably wasn't as encouraging as I am now.
Mhm.
And I think that most people, to get rid of the stigma, like most departments, they have to qualify with their weapon once a year. Well, I am a firm believer that I can send you to a therapist for an hour, and you can talk about last night's football game or whatever you want. But if I get you to open up and I save your life, it's worth it. And
100%.
if everyone has to go, there is no stigma
Hmm.
because everyone has to go from the head, the police chief, all the way down to the brand new guy. He can go for 1 hour and you might, because the person that's not going to talk about their problems at work, they might talk to that person.
Hmm.
And isn't it worth it? I mean, budgets are getting cut everywhere, and mental health just for civilians has been cut many years ago by these large cities because now you have all these mental crises on, transit systems and just outside homelessness because people aren't taking their meds or they're self-medicating themselves and not taking their meds, or the people that care for them don't know how to deal with them because they're off their meds. And um, you almost have to force feed it, but you're going to have to pay for it. And that's a big thing.
Hmm.
You know, I know there's some places in Arizona that they're really on top of it. They are doing tons of things, and I think a big thing is just to find someone's outlet. Find Have something to find someone's outlet, whether it's golf or working out or running or reading a book or sewing or whatever it is, and then give them the resources to get them started to find that thing. And because our kids need it. I
Hmm.
mean, we need it. It's not a law enforcement issue. It's an everyone issue.
Yep.
And it's, you have to make it more comfortable. It's like breaking your arm and you're going to see a doctor to get it fixed. Some people have chemical imbalances and it's okay. You just have to go and find it. I mean, I don't take any medication for anything, but I mean, there's people that need it. And you shouldn't frown upon people that have a chemical imbalance of something that's making them think certain ways. If they need it, they need it, you know? So,
Yeah. And I love that concept of, hey, we have to do this every year for our safety. Why not do mental health check-ins every year for our safety? And I do think that, when I started, we talked about this earlier, but when I started in this wellness space 8 years ago, there was a lot of head scratching and like cops don't do this and this is never going to be a part of our culture. And I think everyone is starting to see that shift that's happened over the last decade, and there's still a long ways to go, but I do think that it's more, at least, a conversation, and there's more of an awareness around of like, hey, we got to take care of our people. And the more agencies can take care of their people and provide those resources that you mentioned before, regardless of what it is, because we know that there's lots of different, methods for wellness, financial wellness, mental wellness, physical, emotional. Regardless of what that is, having those resources available so that not only can you take care of your people because we know that's important, but now they can also take care of the community in a better way. And now I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. I'll cut this in a
I
second,
mean,
but
it's just that, you go through so many things. Yeah, I mean, you go from your heart beating 100 miles a minute to, now you're doing paperwork and it's done. And you're
hmm.
up and you're down, you're up and you're down. And, they always talk about having your police department reflect your community. Well, your mental health reflects your community as well.
Hmm.
So if there's people
100%.
in the community that need help, there are people in your department that need help and they need it. And and like I said, it's an outlet. Like I I like to go and just talk about things that, might be annoying to me or whatever, or maybe I am having an issue with something, and just to talk to a therapist and they just listen. Most
Hmm.
people just want to vent and get that pressure out of their body. And I'd say that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest help for me is getting the pressure out of my body where I'm not going to be judged. I'm not going to be anything but getting that out. And I'm not wrong, like
Yeah.
you're entitled to your feelings. And I like to tell people all the time, well, especially my kids, two things. No one's coming to save you. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility for your health, your happiness. and misery loves company. It's
Mm.
easy to skip your workout and stay home and sleep. It's easy to skip, doing the thing, your homework and go and have pizza and watching the game. It's easy. You know, I used to ask all the people that when we would do a prostitution mission, and these girls would be like, "Well, I'm hooked on heroin." I'm like, "Well, who got you hooked on heroin?" And they were like, "It's always the boyfriend."
Mhm.
And having daughters, I'm just like, man, misery loves company. So you get someone that wants you to try this, stay away from them
Right.
because once you have someone hooked, like if you and your partner are hooked on going drinking after work every day, that's a dangerous, dangerous combination. And some people are going to take it further than they want to. And uh, you know, life's too short. And departments when they do have a suicide that happens out of the blue, and they announce it, and they say, these things are available to you, blah 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 blah. And I will say that my department has really got on the ball and they make it known. And they did some really good things by having multiple locations. And I think that's what's helped me the most. I have a
Mm.
location that's 10 minutes from me that I can go to instead of like 45 minutes. It has helped me so much for them to do that, to make it so convenient for me to go
Right.
actually drive there and be there, that it's so easy to go. And I think that's a thing too for people that want to go, even people that want to go that still have to drive 45 minutes through traffic to get there, they're not going to go.
Tough. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's probably the number one reason why I go as much as I do because it's so close
Right.
and it's so great. So but yeah,
What what role do you think, just because I'm hearing you talk and, even that comment you made about people who are like, they have their own opinions about wellness and they're like, you don't need that. And I think that that's very much that older mentality of like, show up, shut up, rub dirt on it, like you don't need it, just toughen up. How important do you think it is as a leader to, have that open mind? And maybe it's not for you, but recognizing that even if you don't feel like you need it, being able to get out of your own way and still be supportive and, make sure that you're leading from the front and not creating that stigma for your people. How important do you think that is within an organization?
I think it's really important. Just the fact that I think most people that say that now say that because one, they're too afraid to go,
Hmm.
or two, they're just saying it to save face to act tough, and maybe they do go.
Right.
So I think it's really important. I know that I've had uh, three people under my supervision at different times, um, two with alcohol and one basically just with relationship problems. And to sit and to talk. And I remember the first time I had to do it as a supervisor. I knew the person when I was just an officer, and I worked with them years back, but now they were different,
Mm.
little incoherent, little, and I was their supervisor. So I brought them in, went into the lieutenant's office, and I said, I need to talk to you, and I want to have the lieutenant here. And I said, I'm either going to be right and I'm going to get you help, or I'm going to be wrong and you're going to hate me the rest of your life. But I'm willing for you to hate me the rest of your life for me to tell this to you.
Hmm.
And I said, I think you have a drinking problem. And I think you need to get some help because you're not the same person that I knew before. You're very different. You're a little bit more grumpy, nastier, not as polite, not as, not like you were. And that's a scary thing to do.
Hmm.
You're calling someone out and looked at me, immediately said, I think I need to go get help. Went and did it. Uh, Came back, and I'm not, it's not easy. It's a struggle. Uh, but we talked about it later, and he goes, "You're right."
Mm.
And you know, that's a very most people don't want to get involved,
Yeah.
and I I'm not a big Bible beater. I'm not a Christian type thing. I'm like, I'm not going to church every Sunday, but I am a Christian and I believe in God and I believe in karma. And I don't want to see anyone take their life. I don't want to see anybody struggle when they don't have to. I mean, struggling's good for to make you stronger mentally for some things, um, but not like that.
Mhm.
Um, Using my experience to help others, recognizing what I'm seeing. Um, that's why I think it's so important to do that, and I think that stigma will start to break. It'll take a while
Mhm.
because, like I said, I'm that dinosaur now. I'm the person that's way back, and it took me 27 years to figure out that I need this, and I'm not done. Like I'm scratching surfaces, like I'm going things back when I was a kid that I brought up, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I remember this, like, and they're like, you need to address this, like you need to get it out. And like I said, like my stresses are just things that the job contributes to, lack of sleep, schedule changing, days off canceled. I mean, where I work, every little, every warm holiday, you're canceled.
Mhm.
Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Father's Day. Um, how are you, as a young officer, supposed to make memories with your family when you're canceled? And when you're canceled and things are still happening, murders are still going, people are still getting shot. What are you as a department doing to help them? I mean, you can have all the counselors you want, but that doesn't help your wife and kid at home going, oh, it's Memorial Day, Daddy won't be here, or it's 4th of July, Mommy won't be here, or God forbid you're both the police.
Mhm.
Who's going to take care of our kids? We don't have any help. What are we going to do? It doesn't matter if you had 7 days notice or 2 weeks notice. It's messed up. Like, yeah, I'll never. Oh, you signed up for it. Yeah, I didn't sign up for that. When I'm supposed to be like, you get Christmas off every 7 years. You know that you're going to be off because it rotates. Your days off rotate. So you're looking forward to it. Here it comes. You're making plans. And then here it comes. Oh, well, you got to go work this.
Mhm.
It's
Tough.
it's awful. And there has to be a different way to do that. There has to be a different way. Um, I don't, like I said, I don't have the freedom of speech that I do. All of these things, everything that I say is based upon my experience and my opinion only because
Mhm.
I don't have the freedom of speech. Um, but I think departments can do better. They can do better. You know, I'm not saying you get every weekend off because it's impossible. I'm not saying you can't, you shouldn't have midnight officers because it's impossible. But you definitely need to look at that because, like I said before, everyone that made this job their life, they're miserable bosses. They're horrible. You know, I like to do as a supervisor, one of the place where I'm working right now. When I got there, I think it was, I don't know, first couple months. I was there on days, pulled out a barbecue, started barbecuing burgers and hot dogs. And I remember my lieutenant going, "What the hell are you doing?" I go, "Barbecuing."
Mhm.
And he's like, "What? Why?" I go, "Because for 2 hours, I'm going to make these guys, because there's like 60 guys in my unit. I'm going to make these guys forget about everything for 2 hours."
I love that.
And because guess what? Someone did it when I was a young officer. They brought in uh, sandwiches or cookies or pizza and they fed everyone. They didn't ask for any money. They just did it. I had a boss that I could not stand. She brought in Gatorade on a summer day. She had coolers brought in of water and Gatorade. And I thought that was the nicest thing that she could
Mhm.
do. And for 10 seconds, someone cared about you. And what did it cost you? What, $100?
Right. I love that.
People need to get their head out of their ass and start taking care of people. And if you have to have a fund, like we have flower funds for people when people die, we have the flower fund so we can send flowers to, you can have a fund for that. Get the supervisors together and put a fund together and pick a day, whatever day it is. Don't tell them it could be a Tuesday. And if you're off that day, too bad you missed it, but you pick a day and you do it.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
and if you could get a restaurant or a pizza place or even an ice cream place to be your confidant and you give them the money and they hook you up and give you a discount or whatever the hell that is, and you come in and you do something special, even have your community members come in and do it because you need it.
Yeah.
It lasts 30 minutes, but you're going to remember it and
Hmm.
you're going to remember to do it. And people say, well, police department doesn't have time for that, blah, blah. No, we make plenty of time for the community. We do a lot of community events, tons. We have our national night out. We do all that stuff. You can have an event for your officers on your watch, and every watch can do it themselves on whatever days, and you get it done. I
I
mean,
love that. And I think
I
that's a testament to like small things make huge impact. And like you said, it's such a small, easy thing that means so much and it boosts morale and it makes you feel like someone cares about you. I love that. I've actually never heard anyone say that before, and I think that that's a great idea.
it, I mean, I picture in my head now, like when I retire and move away, uh, I can see myself doing that for whatever departments I I work at.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I have so many ideas when it comes to that because I've been there working. Like, there's no working on midnights. There's nothing worse than having the community do something for the police department. Well, everybody on days and afternoons, they're getting fed and
Right.
fat and doing all that stuff. And then when you get to midnight, you got the scraps.
Yeah.
You know, for me, like if I was doing it, I would start on midnights and be like, I'm gonna hook you guys up because I know because it's the worst shift ever.
Hmm.
It's horrible. It's horrible for your home life. I used to work it just so I could go to my kids and stuff. I would sacrifice sleep so I can make sure I made their games, I made their events. And you're a lot of people like to accrue their time and they sell it at the end of the career. I like to take my time because you're not guaranteed to live.
Yep.
I remember a guy I transferred into a new precinct my third year, and he was retiring. He was counting down there. I have 111 days. I have 87 days. I have 17 days. He retired, and then 2 months later, he died of brain cancer.
Oh, wow.
So that sticks with me. Like, you're not live now.
Live now.
I'm not saying that you give up work and not work because you need to work and have insurance and all this other stuff. But man, I'm just waiting to find my next chapter, and I'm out of here, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna live, and I want to live a long life, and that may or may not happen. But aren't I? Isn't it okay for me to have 2, 3 years to do whatever I want? I mean, like I said, you give everything when you're working. How many birthdays I've missed, how many Thanksgivings I've missed, how many Christmas mornings I've missed, taking my kids trick or treating. If you want to get on this job, you're going to miss those. You're going to miss them. And I'm just going to take the day off. Well, you don't have the time on the job, kid. Sorry, you're not getting it. Someone else got it. You're not going to the Super Bowl party. Oh, your daughter's in the hospital. She broke her leg. Guess what? You're not going either. Your spouse needs to understand what exactly is going on and
Hmm.
what it's like. Because there's a lot of no's, not a lot of yeses. And as a
Right.
supervisor, you need to try to get as many yeses as you can. Uh, I remember the time due was restricted during a hockey playoff, and it was game 7. And one of my guys called me. We were working midnights. He called me and he said, "Hey, Sarge, I just got game 7 tickets in a skybox dropped in my lap, and I want to take my son." And I said, "Go." And I have no no control. Like I'm that's not my position at all. I'm like, you can go. And I remember doing roll call and they said, called out the guy's name. And I said, Lieutenant, he's not here. I let him go to the Blackhawks, the hockey team game. And he
That's
goes,
awesome.
yeah, we're gonna have to cut that part out with the, I said the name.
Okay.
Um, but uh, he went to the hockey game 7 with his son. And I told the lieutenant, I said, if the commander doesn't like it, I'll gladly take whatever punishment he wants to give me. And I said, I don't care because we talk about taking care of people's mental health all the
Mhm.
time. And I have this one chance to give him a life event.
Experience with his son. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm not going to be the one that takes it away from him.
Yeah.
Not happening. And and he's like, yeah, well, you just can't do that. And I'm like, well, I did. It's so like some people would and some people wouldn't. Some
Right.
people care about their next promotion. That's all they care about. You know, it took me 18 years to become a supervisor. And, I took the test, I passed it. It took a long time to get to my number, but they did. And I take away things from the supervisors that I had were good. And I look at the things that were bad. And I'm not the best. There are a lot better supervisors than me. Because sometimes I lose my temper or I get annoyed or whatever. So I'm not saying I'm middle of the road. I'm not the worst. I'm not the best. But I try. But your job as a supervisor is to make sure all your officers go home.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to make sure that they have a job at the end of the day and that your job's protected at the end of the day. And that's it, you know. And you have this frontline experience. Like you should be able to see if something's going on with someone and talk to them about it. It's so hard. It's a hard thing to
Mhm.
do to
For
say, hey,
sure.
hey, are you okay? Why? Because some people are defensive. Why? Like, why? Well, I'm just asking, but the backbone of your department are the people working the beat car. And when you forget what it's like to like, you take it for granted when you've moved on from the beat car. It's always there. It's the
Mhm.
worst. It's the worst because you're dealing with all the crap all day long. You know, this call, this call, this call, and you you have to remember what it's like for those people that are working that because someone always has to work it, and you got to take care of them as much as you possibly can. You have to
100%.
watch out for them for the most. The person sitting by, like, I'm in a unit, so I'm a little different. I'm not doing the day-to-day thing. And it's good for me because I don't want to be in the beat car answering jobs. No one does. But there are some people out there that they're great at it. They're really good. And, but to do that constantly, that's where your soul gets taken.
Mhm.
That's where it's like the Wizard of Oz. You look behind the curtain and you get to see what real life is. You get to see, well, it's not like it's a gift, but you get to see the real evil that happens in this world. And no one's going to believe it. Like you don't believe it. How can that be? How could you how could you stab your brother over the last beer?
Mhm.
And he died. Like just weird, evil things that happen. How could you beat a 2-year-old little baby? And you it's in your suitcase.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that you put it away because you don't want to deal with it. And I don't know what it's called. I mean, I'm not a peer support person. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but you disassociate with it. That's why cops have bad senses of humor. It's really dark
Right.
and and some of it's really bad, but it gets you by it. And like I said, you have to be there to understand it.
Right. And I've appreciate your insight so much, and I feel like you've given so much not only to think about, I think from an organizational perspective and a leadership perspective of how you can do better, but also from an individual perspective of, you know, of recognizing that you need to live your life and your life needs to be more than the job, and there are positive outlets and resources for you, and you know, there is I don't want to say hope, but there is opportunity at the end of this career to have a long and successful life and to have a family and all of the things that I think everyone really does want in their life. Sometimes you maybe lose sight of it, or you don't always have the resources for it. But if there was one, and this will be my final question to you, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to an officer who is earlier in their career when it comes to wellness, something that you wish you would have known earlier in your career, or maybe a piece of advice that you received that you wish you would have listened to, what would that be?
Um, well, first is that there's someone there to talk to, and that just because other people think it's stupid, maybe they just like being miserable,
Mm.
and you don't answer to them. You know, they don't feed you, finance you, or fornicate with you. They don't count. You know, you do your thing. You're responsible for your own happiness, so do your thing and go get it done. But for me, my biggest piece of advice is that not everything is going to go your way, and accept it. That sometimes you're going to get your days off canceled. Sometimes you're going to miss these events. I tell guys now that when you have your days off canceled with your kids or some event, then take another day off somewhere like in the middle of the week that it won't be canceled. Make time for your family.
Mm.
Make time. If you don't have a family and you want to work and you want to buy a new Jeep, hey, great, knock yourself out, do it while you're young. Put into your retirement, max out your retirement, do everything you can because you will, when it's time to retire, you're going to be comfortable. Um, Set up a 529 for your kids for their college. Didn't do that. It'll benefit you. Do whatever you can, but make time for your family and for yourself. My biggest regret is having my kids say that I wasn't there because I worked too much.
Mm.
And yeah, we went on family vacations and stuff like that, like good ones, but be there more. Be there more and talk to your spouse and have some kind of a uh, word or something that you can say that, basically they're telling you that I think something's going on with you. Like, I think you need to take time for something. Like, it doesn't have to be an argument. You have to discuss it, like be open and honest about things because, sometimes you just come home annoyed and it adds to an argument and your spouse needs to understand that there are things that go on that they can't help you with, that they're not going to understand, but they need to say something to you to get you to know that something's not right. Like you you're acting different, like and you can't get defensive. Like maybe you are doing too many Zens, or maybe you're taking too many drinks, or maybe you're not coming home and you're not, you're staying out too late after work. You need to be honest and have some kind of a setup where you can you can go and not be defensive about it. Like you've already talked about, say, if I tell you this, this is what it means, and have it on a piece of paper so that if there's an argument, you can just go, remember this? We
Mhm.
talked about this,
Yeah.
and because it's hard for people to understand what you go through. Um, like I said, schedule wise or missing, because I try to be a really good dad and I want to be there for everything. And when you miss those things, it's hard.
Yeah.
I would say you really think about what you're doing when you take this job, because it's exciting as hell. Like it's great. There's a lot of great things you can do. You can help a lot of people. You can do great things, but you're going to be second guessed. You're going to be told no. You're going to see politics in your department. You're going to see people that don't deserve to be promoted over you promoted because of who they know or whatever. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And if you're truly not happy, be prepared to leave.
Mm.
Go get your education, I went and got my master's degree while I was still working. Well, I'm still working, but I mean, while they paid for it. Always learn, keep learning. Um, Ask a lot of questions. If you want to be somewhere where someone's at, how did you get there? And be okay with not being okay.
100%.
So, I mean, I would say that's my biggest, I don't know, it's such a blur. 29 years goes by in a heartbeat.
Hmm.
I think about, my old partners and the places I've been, the things that I've done, the good, the bad, the mistakes I've made. You make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. And hopefully they're not, lethal mistakes, but you are going to make mistakes. But, and don't let other people tell you what you need to do. You have to look out for yourself, you know, and I'd say that's probably the one of the biggest things. Just concentrate on you and your family and don't make this job your life because it's not.
Thank you.
You're
That
welcome.
was very well said. I really appreciate your time so much. I appreciate your words of wisdom. Thank you so much for joining this and participating and helping to spread the word of wellness and helping to destigmatize wellness in law enforcement. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.